Okay, training for and racing an Ironman. It's a little presentation I've put together just to help everyone through this tricky little challenge that a lot of people will face in triathlon. So the demands of an Ironman are that it's a 3.8 kilometre swim, 180k bike and 42.2k run, but you already know that. Let's go into some of the intricacies of it. It'll take you 8 to 17 hours to complete. It's got high aerobic endurance demands, and the muscular durability aspect is huge, probably the greatest thing. Nutrition and pacing are key. You're going to have to get that right. And mental resilience is needed in bundles, as is patience. So how much training is required? This is probably the biggest question I get asked, I would say. So the typical range is 8 to 15 hours per week, depending on your level and the stage in your program or in the program for the race. So it's you might start off at, say, an 8-hour week, but you'll end up with a 15 to 16-hour week, probably in that last 6 weeks before the taper. The typical total final 13-week block range, I say 13 weeks because that's the 90-day range in training peaks. It's 140 to 150 hours. Sounds like a lot, but it sort of averages out around about 11 to 11 and a half hours a week. The weekends get to a 5-hour ride with a 30-minute run off and a 2.5-hour run. We do sometimes go a little bit above that according to the athlete's level of confidence. Sometimes athletes come to me and they like to do a 3-hour run. That's by the by. The weekdays stay around about the 6.5 hours. That's a bit of a funny one, really. Work, family, all this sort of stuff doesn't change in priorities, let's say. So we kind of have to fit around it. It used to be able to change a little bit, but and you would as you're moving forward in your level, but just generally you're going to stay at around 6.5 hours. So Monday, Wednesday, Fridays would be 45 minutes to an hour each. And Tuesdays and Thursdays are your double days, and that would be 2 hours each. So it might be like a 1 hour 15 bike and a 45-minute run. You would probably hit the start of taper around the 90 to 100 CTL in Training Peaks language, and you'd wash a little bit of that off while you're tapering. So what the training looks like, it's mostly endurance work, of course. Swim would look like an aerobic Monday, a quality Wednesday, and an endurance Friday. Bike and run would be strength endurance on Tuesdays, speed endurance on Thursdays. That basic framework gives you a good, what we call pyramidal training intensity distribution that is very suited to Ironman and 70.3, or most long distance triathlon. So the strength endurance stuff and the speed endurance stuff, it really accelerates our economy. It helps us become in our movement patterns. The run off the bike on the weekend, but not always, and occasionally we'll do that midweek. Intensity hills and speed are used, as I say, for the economy and durability aspects. Consistent but tired, never too deep. We never want to be too tired. I don't want you a walking zombie, but you're going to be tired training for an Ironman. This is what develops good movement under fatigue. So if you've got a good level of fatigue, you're going to be having to move and mentally manage that process of moving well while you're tired. Train today so you can back up for tomorrow, of course. Race modeling, training like you will race. So early phase in your, say, let's call it a 16-week build into an Ironman. The early phase is just general endurance development. So it's just backing up session after session, and you're developing your muscular and aerobic endurance. The last 2 blocks is when it starts to become specific, and we'll talk about that in a minute, where you will train at your goal race intensities. So that's why we call it specific endurance. So it's endurance at the power, pace, and heart rates that you'll be doing on the day. So what we want to do is develop a feel for that, backed by data, of course, of your powers, paces, and heart rates. We're going to be practicing fueling exactly as planned for your race. So we want to simulate race conditions and paces in long sessions. So if you can train at the same temperatures as your race is going to be and the same humidity numbers, that's going to be helpful. But you might not always be able to do that, of course. So, but I would encourage doing some of that. Build pacing discipline early. The final 8 weeks, testing race pace. So this final 8 weeks is the key to success. Over the last 8 weeks, you've developed all of your fitness and endurance. And now we've got to start thinking about how you're going to go at your race. So we can start looking at your heart rates and your paces and powers in your files. And we can start to come up with a rough plan. Then we'll go out and test it. We've got 8 weeks to do it. There's plenty of time. And we can start dialing in your nutrition and hydration strategy as well. So at this stage, I would start doing weigh in and weigh outs on long sessions so that we know how much you're sweating. And we can start to confirm your pacing is sustainable and at T2. So, you might have a pace, your desired pace might be, say, 32 kilometers an hour on the ride. But if you've got a T2 heart rate, it's obviously not sustainable because you will be burning too much fuel and you will bonk. So what we're doing is trying to identify what pace is and what power is, and making sure that the heart rate response and your body's fitness and metabolic response is suitable to what we're trying to do. You're going to start testing your equipment and getting it serviced. Don't want to be servicing the bike with 2 weeks to go. Run shoes in good condition. Doing this sort of training this last 8 weeks just focuses it on your race and not necessarily just getting fitter and fitter and fitter. It builds confidence that way, and we want you to be avoiding last-minute experimentations. They're the worst thing. Nutrition. So daily fueling supports recovery and adaptation. This is the most important part of an Ironman nutrition plan, not the nutrition on the day. The nutrition on the day, pretty simple. It's pretty simple. We come up with grams of carbohydrate per hour, making sure that the type of nutrition is suitable to what your gut and your body likes. But the daily one is the most important thing. We don't want to be trying to lose weight or go into a caloric deficit in an Ironman prep, and especially in that last 8 weeks. You want to maintain high carbohydrate availability by doing small top-ups pre-session, and then during your long sessions, making sure you have the right amount of carbs, fluids, and sodium. You want to refuel post-session mainly via the main meals, which kind of normally happens anyway. Most of our training gets done just prior to a main meal, and you would finish in the morning, for instance, after having a little top-up before the session, eating during the session, and then after that you'd have breakfast. And even in the night sessions, you're going to be having your dinner at the right time after your meal, after your training session. You want to practice your race nutrition weekly at this stage in that last 8 weeks. And gut training is going to be part of your preparation, making sure you can tolerate your targeted race numbers. Ironman's a T2 event, so pacing is going to be everything. We don't want you going too hard or going too easy either. You don't need to be doing T1 and doing a slow event just because you don't know what pace to do. It's a T2 event, so we do a fair bit of training in that zone. We use higher zones to get us stronger and more economical, but the T2 is where it's at for the race day. You're going to start controlled, hold the middle, and finish strong on the day. The ride is there to eat for the run. And if we do the swim comfortable and controlled with a steady effort, we can't go wrong. Don't go too slow. Again, you've got to be pushing along, good steady effort. Don't leave all of that hard training in the pool and then get on the race day and doing 20 seconds or 30 seconds per 100 meters slower than you have been in the pool. Bike, stick to your power, pace, and heart rate plan. You're going to have that triangle, power, pace, heart rate. The triangulation is super important, and I would talk to you about that in your preparation. On the run, you're going to control the U. By the U, I mean it's like a U-shaped pacing. So you start at a certain pace, get a little bit slower, and then get a bit faster at the end once you know mentally that you can make it to the end. You tend to drop off mentally just as much as physically in the middle, to be honest. So you just got to control the U. So you might say you started at 5-minute pace and you drop in the middle. So let's say it might be to 5:30 or 5:45 pace, and then you're going to come up towards 5 minutes pace at the end. It's that controlling the depth of that U shape is critical. We don't want you going from 5-minute to 10-minute pace. Common mistakes to avoid: you don't want to miss the long sessions. They're the key. During the week is about getting you fit, but during the weekend is about preparing for the race. That's what it's all going to be about. We do not want to try and lose weight in an Ironman prep. You will not be at a calorie deficit. As you go through the program and your distances become more, you're going to require more fuel, and especially on the weekends. As I said before, during the week, your fueling is going to be about the same because your training is going to be about the same. So you want to be intaking about the same amount during the week, but on the weekends, you're going to have to do more training, and as such, you're going to have to do more eating. I'm sure you'll like that. Chasing fitness late in the build, we don't want to be doing that. We don't want to race emotionally instead of strategically. You want to have a strategy, and you're going to stick to it, okay? You want to execute on that strategy. We don't want to be aiming for too high carb intakes. Quite a common problem lately when we see all the pros having anywhere from 120 up to 200 grams of carbohydrates per hour. It's not for you because they can go that fast to burn that amount of carbohydrates. You can't go that fast to burn that amount of carbohydrates. The effort level and the power you're putting out is probably going to be no more than, say, 75 to 90 grams of carbohydrates per hour. So you don't want to be putting in 140 if you're only burning 90, because that's 50 too much per hour and you're going to get a gastrointestinal distress. So finally, last slide, the blueprint: consistent training over 4 months. It doesn't need to be hero stuff, just consistent. We're going to be smart race modeling in that final 8 weeks. We're going to be dialing in our nutrition and pacing. We're going to have a durable body and a calm mind. The more we stay out of the physio room, the better. We don't need to, and we don't have to. If you're consistent, you're going to be okay. We're going to execute the plan daily. I hope you're going to enjoy the Ironman. It's a great challenge. If you get it right, you will be at an all-time level of fitness. And once you finish it, you will be able to feel like you can walk through walls. So I hope you enjoy it. Just stick to the plan, stick to processes over outcomes, and it's going to be a good time for all.